American Go Association. I'm Chris Garlock, managing editor of the AGA Journal, and I'm joined once again by Michael Redmond, 9-Dan professional. Today, Michael's going to review the 19th AlphaGo versus AlphaGo self-play game. And as always, before we get started, I want to thank all our AGA members. If you'd like to support this content as well, please consider joining the American Go Association at usgo.org. So, Michael, we got another of your favorite series, the AlphaGo self-play. So,
yes.
what have we got ahead of us today?
Well, it's pretty usual fare. Like you're going to be wondering which group it is that's going to die, and they all come to life in the end. But and it's going to be close too, pretty close.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Oh, we should mention we've mentioned before, but we're closing in. We've been working on the AlphaGo book, and we just finished this section of the book, which I think is our longest section, right? The self-play series.
Yeah. So we're getting there. Yeah. So it'll be hopefully sometime around June in 2018, just for people who watch in the future, right?
I don't know. You're kind of boxing us in there. I heard a specific month. I don't know.
Maybe,
soon.
Maybe not. Yeah,
I'm going to go with soon.
Yeah, soon. Okay.
All right. What do we got?
Okay, let's get started. This is actually an opening that AlphaGo in the self-played series did play a few times. And so it jumps into the 3-3 point. So in the opening here, I'm going to be sort of comparing what AlphaGo does. And this is, so it's like the last stages of the master version, just to clarify, because we are using a lot of versions of AlphaGo now.
Yeah, we are.
And so it's what I was calling the KJ version. But that's probably not correct. So I'm just going to be calling it master from now on. But it is sort of different from the master that played human players several months before that.
Right.
And so here I'm sort of comparing it with these marks on the board to what a human player would normally be thinking of playing. And when I say a human player, maybe I'm talking about professionals in general, but at the very least, I'm talking about myself. So some kind of a Kakari against the upper left corner. Mm-hmm. Or an extension on the lower side looks really big, and some players would play the San, say, on the right side at D.
Right.
So those are moves that I would call normal for black. But of course, black plays this invasion in the 3-3 point, and it's very much like AlphaGo. But it's also become very popular after AlphaGo came on the scene. So now there's a lot of pros who are doing this too, especially the younger pros in Japan. And in China, like there's a lot of pros at the top who are playing this kind of style. And one interesting thing about this is that AlphaGo covers on what we originally thought would be the wrong side. Like in conventional wisdom, you want to cover on the side that you want to build on. Mm-hmm. So covering on this side is what we would call the normal move. And you could get this kind of a joseki with no stone for white on the side. Like let's just mark I'll go to the end of the variation. So this marked white stone is a bit far away. So when white doesn't have a stone close on the side, I think this position in the upper right is an example of the most likely. This is the joseki that I would expect, instead of joseki that you might have seen in joseki books or Go books, which has sort of died out. But without a stone on the side. And I'm talking about a stone somewhere around here or here.
Sure.
Would change the way that both players play that joseki in the upper left. But without that stone, I would expect this kind of thing. It's still an even result. I'd expect black to probably. Actually, it's convenient that I marked those two squares because those are two squares just about where black might be jumping into the white side.
Right.
And so that would be how the game continues. It's not necessarily bad for white. But white does have to attack fairly convincingly. So white covers on the other side, and we get this position. Again, I might mention that this is sort of where we're still trying to figure out this joseki because there's a lot of complicated variations when black plays the attachment, and white tries to punish it by playing this variation. And I could talk about
Wow.
this all day, but I'm not going to complicate it anymore. And there's a theory, a hypothesis we have that this could happen without this exchange.
Okay.
And that would be if black plays the game move and then white extends. So in this case, that hane on the second line would not be there. Whereas if black starts with the attachment underneath, let's just go through it one move at a time, then when this happens, there's going to be that hane on the second line. So there's a comparison of this position. Let's see if I can snap back and forth. So it's this position compared to this position. And the hypothesis that most pros have is that that exchange on the second line is bad for black. And it's not just sort of guesswork. We have a lot of variations that we've gone into that sort of underline that possibility. But there's a ladder that is involved. In this case, the ladder, there's a ladder breaking move. This stone here is breaking the ladder, so the ladder favors black. In general, the ladder I'm talking about is when white extends here and black plays here, and white wants to capture in the ladder. So the ladder is good for black.
Okay.
And so there's all sorts of stuff that will change how this turns out. And so maybe it's okay for black in this particular position. And it's being played in any way. This variation here has been played this way a lot in professional games, and it's being played this way in professional games. And we've had mixed results so far.
Okay.
So it's not, so I could go into a lot of detail. I've already probably gone too far for most players, but it's really complicated, and we don't have a clear answer at this point. So I'm going to leave it here.
Let me just ask one question, which we discussed a little bit in the book. I think it's interesting, which is you mentioned the pros have been playing that 3-3 early, jump in, but they don't really completely understand it yet, right? I mean, how are people?
Especially the variations that I was just talking about, because they're really super complicated. Just to add to the fun here.
Sorry. Yes.
You got me started. There's this one too. So there's this one, and that's really exciting too. But and this is probably not so good for black. But that would be a I'd have to build a whole Go file to explain that one for you too. So there's a lot of stuff happening here that are basically all of this move and this move were very rare variations before, but now they've become pretty close to mainstream, and we're still sort of figuring them out.
Wow.
Like usually they were played with some white stone in the general vicinity. So like there would be a white stone either somewhere around here or somewhere around here, which would of course make a big difference in what happens. So we don't have so much professional experience in playing this particular position. And the young players have probably figured it out to a certain degree, but they still, and so AlphaGo, just to state one kind of a conclusion, AlphaGo tends to bump against here. So it doesn't play this attachment. And maybe it was AlphaGo playing this way that got people started to thinking that maybe playing this was not such a good move, because this was this kind of standard move before AlphaGo. And so we get this standard variation. So just to give you a kind of a warning there that at some point maybe I'm going to try to dive into those variations. But today I'm going to leave it at that point.
Fair enough.
And so white plays away. So playing away here is a point where white could have continued the joseki and upper left just to add some moves here. Like this would be a very standard, simple variation. But in this case, you see white's wall is facing in the wrong direction. So I don't expect AlphaGo to be playing this variation in this case. So what would AlphaGo do? AlphaGo would probably play the hane here. And then white has a choice of playing the double hane, which will lead to probably something like this. And again, we see that the ladder is going to favor black. So when this ladder favors black, white has to choose a move like this. And actually, we saw something very similar to this, a different board position, but we saw this position locally in a game that I played against Numadate. So that's in one of the Redmond reviews. So people who, and this is okay for white, provided white can get some strength on the side. So in this position where white has a position on the left side, I guess this is okay. But this black stone here still has some potential to create trouble. So it's going to move out at some point. And I'm calling it about even. I was happy to play this way with white.
Yeah, I like white.
But black has possibilities too. So that's one way white can play. Otherwise, going back to this point where white has played the double hane, this cutting here is a move that has become extremely popular. And this could lead to, for instance, something like this, where and the evaluation of this squeeze where white has gained a lot in the direction of the corner is mixed, because by playing that squeeze, white is allowing black to play a more efficient move towards the side. And then we get this crazy looking move, which is really good in this kind of position where the ladder is bad for white. But this is actually not so bad for white. This is actually an even result. Right. And white has a pretty annoying move here on the upper side that's going to come next.
Okay.
Just because it's not as if black's going to die, but black doesn't really want to be pushed around in the corner. So this a move at the mark point by white is going to be pretty annoying to black next. So just to get back to the game, you know, I'm sort of making these variations as I go, because I didn't have that one originally in the game file, but it's sort of interesting.
That's my fault. Sorry.
Yeah, it's sort of interesting to see how white could continue in the upper left corner, but AlphaGo plays away. So now we have a position where AlphaGo played this game 3 times.
I hear puppy dog.
Yeah.
Hey, there is.
Someone put him away.
He wants to see another variation.
Yeah. Well, this is actually a position that occurred in the self-played series 3 times. And so AlphaGo, playing against itself, played this opening 3 times, but had a different play for white at this point in all 3 games. So this is the game move that was played in today's game. This is a move that it played in a different game, and it did continue with. Let's just see how it continued in these games. So in one game, it actually did continue with this Joseki. So, no, or did I make that variation? No, I didn't make that variation.
I think that's your variation.
This was there already. So it got into this version. Oh, this is interesting, because it's not what I was telling you would happen. It played the hane and the double hane. And I was saying that at this point, black would cut here and take the 1 stone. So this is the variation just showing you right now.
Right.
But what AlphaGo did here was it cut here once and then took the stone on the second line. So cutting here is kind of a big gambit for black. It's losing a lot of points on the upper side. It's giving white a very strong position. And usually it's not so good, because in this position, white's wall is really strong, and AlphaGo likes to try to attack these walls with a play somewhere around here. But with this exchange on the second line, where white has put this black stone in Tari, this wall is so strong that black's not going to be able to attack it very easily. So locally, this is a local loss for black, but you see that black has erased the left side. And the left side was an area, if we go back to my variation, let's see if I can find it, this one. If we go back to this variation, we can see that the left side is pretty much looking like it's going to be white's territory.
Absolutely.
Right. So so that's the point of the way black diverges from the normal Joseki here when white plays this way and takes the left side. So this is what AlphaGo did in a different game from this self-played series. And so since the left side was likely to become a white territory, apparently AlphaGo felt that the value of reducing the left side was more important than the local loss that black incurred by playing that marked move on the second line. So we got this trade, which is interesting. So this was one of the games. I don't offhand remember what game number it was, but I don't think it's come yet. And then this one, I remember this one. White invaded the 3-3 point, and we got a kind of a mirror position here.
Yeah.
And it was really crazy, because both of them took their opponent's eyes away. and then black pincered here. And white's going to pincer that pincer stone, and black's going to pincer the pincer of the pincer stone, and then white's going to jump in too.
So we're going to have
exploded. We're going to have something like, well, if we discount the two corner groups, which are alive,
of course,
then there's going to be 6 groups in between that, in that small space, just sort of running out and dying. Yeah, some of them die, and running out into the center. So like these 2 marked walls, both of them are going to die. And then there's going to be 4 groups between them that are sort of running out into the center. So that game's, I remember that game is 27. And it's going to be a lot of fun. But it's still...
I can hardly wait.
We're at game 19 now, so game 27 is still a bit in the future for us. But it's going to be, I'm looking forward to it.
I'm going to have some good Bordeaux ready for that game. If you're going to have that many groups living and dying, that's a red wine game for sure.
Well, it already has the SDF file already has some variations in it, but it still has a lot of work to be done.
Okay, all right.
Okay, to get back to the game. So white could play the 3 point, or white could continue the Joseki in the upper left. But in this game, white just plays a Kakari, almost like a human player.
How boring.
It changes later. So black, this is one way black can punish white in the upper left. I'm going to talk in more detail in a different game. I think I put more detail in another game coming pretty soon. So it might be I think it's going to be one of the 0 against A.G. Lee games. Because in this upper left corner position, black can also cut here, which is a good move. It's generally a good move if black has a lot of strength in the adjacent corners. So in this game where we have a white Kakari in the upper right and a white position in the lower left corner, maybe it's not so good for black, because this is going to lead into a big fight going into the center of the board and filling the left and upper sides. So black does want to have some extra power in the general area. So it's maybe not good for this particular game position. So black plays here. Locally, this is a really important move because it gets rid of the weakness that was in black's position, the weakness that we were seeing when white was playing moves like this to make a double hane, white's taking advantage of the damezumari, the lack of liberties in black's position. So this exchange here is erasing that weakness. Also, by playing on the second line here, although it's a low move, it is taking away the eyes from white's wall. So black is preparing to attack this wall. So this wall can get into a lot of trouble. But it is out into the center, so it does take some chasing. We're going to see black chase it in this game, so that'll be coming.
Good.
And so also it's a big move as far as territory is concerned. So white plays the double Kakari. This is also considered to be a very important move. In fact, there was a period before AlphaGo where people just felt that black should have answered, like answering that the original Kakari was the standard move, and allowing this double Kakari was considered to be a local disadvantage. And it's still, locally it's a disadvantage, but we're seeing a lot of robots allow the double Kakari. So people have started playing it more. And black plays. It's also interesting that black used to play the 5-5 point, which was very simple. It was very simple, but it was sort of weak on territory. I haven't seen AlphaGo play that move. I don't remember seeing AlphaGo play that move. And I don't remember seeing any other Go playing computers play that move. So this is a move that has lost popularity in human games also, because we're not seeing the robots play it.
It does seem just kind of like an...
It's taking a local loss, and once white plays here, black covering on the third line is not really all that attractive to black, and this black group can become a weakened group.
Right.
But of course, black is getting an extra tempo because black's going to play away now.
Right.
And it all depends on how black can use that tempo. This is this kind of thing is something that Goseigen actually liked to play. So it's we do have a very strong historical player who did like to play the 5-5 point sometimes.
Okay.
But black plays this Joseki. And this is a point where black always played here at first, and this move has become a bit more popular. And of course, I think people will be familiar with this variation, which is showing up in a lot of, anyone who is watching professional games will have been seeing this a lot, or this one too. So there's all these variations. And today I just wanted to show you one different variation when white plays the attachment here, because black can also cut here.
Yes.
And white has to connect. In this case, making a ponnuki here would just not be good enough, because black would be virtually the wasted white stone in that corner is more valuable than the ponnuki that white's getting on the outside. That wasted stone in the corner is about 30 points lost too, if you call ponnuki a 30 loss. So when black plays here, white's going to connect probably, and black takes in the ladder. So this all depends on the ladder working for black, and we're going to get this kind of trade. And there is some aji with a cut at C. So this is something that you could see. In the SCF file, I'm saying I like it. To be honest, maybe it's about even. But it's a way that black could play. But white didn't do that in this game. White extended. And for computer Go, I think this is a pretty unusual move now. But white's trying to put pressure on this black group. And this is a joseki that's been around for a long time. Like, this is kind of standard joseki that has been, it used to be just about the one joseki that people played with this double kakari. It was the joseki that you played when white had a local advantage, one extra stone in the local position, and black was playing the tsukenobi joseki, so it's this basic shape. And usually, at this point, white plays on the right side, which is slightly unusual. But it makes sense in this position where black has the lower right corner. So I'm going to say, I'll show how that works. This is the joseki move. And black will play here, and white will connect on the second line. And then the joseki has black covering in the corner. But in this case, black has a strong position in the lower right corner. And maybe you see it coming. Black's going to pincer here.
Yes.
And instead of covering B. And the point is that after pincering here once, black doesn't have to reinforce that stone, because it's already reinforced by black's position in the lower right corner. And that means after pincering here once, black's going to be able to continue with the group in the upper right corner. And white's going to end up with a weak group on the right side. So this is actually looks pretty good for black.
And black's got his eye still on that left side group, right?
He's still thinking of playing at B at some point.
Right.
On the left side group. Well, that's the right side is pretty urgent for both sides at this point. It's going to take some time for black to get around to attacking the left side. Yeah. But in the game, white extends here. So white's preventing black from playing that pincer. In some games, you're going to see white play, for instance, the 3-3 invasion in the lower right corner, which is not a move that AlphaGo likes, but it's a move that you can see sometimes. Of course, you might remember what white likes to do in the lower right corner.
In the right corner?
In the lower right corner, white likes to play the attachment on the third line.
Yeah,
so
no,
we're going to see that. Yeah. So now, like I was showing in the joseki here, this move that black plays, this is considered a key point, a vital point, because it reinforces black's connection. But in this case, white's just going to play away. So this was not the game move. White's going to play away at B, and this is going to give white a loose connection on the upper side for all of white's stones there. And so white's actually not going to save that stone. I'm going to mark the stone now. White's not going to immediately save this stone, but maybe you're going to save it with the next move if black leaves the position. Because black's idea was to pincer white after white saved that stone. So white starts with B and gets rid of a lot of the problems white might be having on the upper side, because white's sort of loosely connected throughout the upper side and doesn't have any weak groups now. So this is okay for white. So instead of playing that, black pincered immediately.
Whoa.
And when black pincers immediately, there are some problems, because white plays the hane here. And if black covers here, like in this joseki in the upper right corner, both players, both black and white, are sort of diverging from what we thought were Joseki sequence.
Right.
So I'm getting a bit crazy here, and I'm making variations for just about every move. But when white plays a Hane here, now if black covers here, there's a cutting point there. White will not,
there is.
Yeah, and that's not good for black. But white might not even cut immediately, but will probably start by taking control of the upper side, sort of hemming black in. And B is a huge threat that's going to come next.
Ooh, it's scary, scary.
Is not so good for black. So that's why this is an important move to play here, and get rid of and complete the connection to those two stones. So this is actually standard. This is the point where the Joseki says white should connect here, but again, white did not do that. So what happens if white plays here is black's going to cover in the corner. And this black group in the corner is pretty safe now. And I'm going to show you what happens, because this is the tessuji that white sometimes uses to scoop out the corner. But when black cuts on the third line here, let's mark that stone. When black cuts here, black is creating a forcing move here at any time. So that's going to get rid of white's connection on the. White was trying to connect oh, sorry. That was a misclick. White's trying to connect by doing this. So this forcing move here that black has, black can just cut here and pick up the two stones in the corner.
Right.
So that's just not working for white. White might continue with something like this, but basically the fact that black is alive in the corner makes this very easy for black.
Nice.
And black still has potential to attack white on the upper side, in the upper right part of the upper side. And of course, the left side is weak too. So black is in a position to attack here. And what's important is that the corner black group is alive. So white didn't do that. White played a very unusual move. Like most people will tell you that playing Atari from this side is vulgar. Or wouldn't. People have stopped saying stuff like that after AlphaGo.
I was going to say, and we were talking about this the other day, that moves that would have been just laughed out of the room. People are very nervous about doing that now, right?
Yeah. Well, I could be telling before AlphaGo, I was telling beginners that you don't jump into 3D so early. I clearly remember saying that to double-digit Q players at least. Yes. Now they can just take out the computer and show me on the internet that AlphaGo likes that move. Yeah.
And I was just wondering whether they come and remind you of that now and say, how about that?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Maybe they're just being polite. So white plays this way. And so this Atari that white has played on the third line is supposed to be vulgar, but in this case, it's pretty effective because white's trying to take away black's space. White's trying to take away black's eye space.
Right.
And black peeps once and plays a Hane here. So this is getting a bit tricky.
Yeah.
Usually a bad move. And then black cuts. So the position in the corner is still a bit fluid because, like, I might even want to escape with this white stone, but this is going to be a ko. So we're going to get this ko. So this is what black was trying to do.
Yeah.
And it turns out that black does have some ko threats in the area that are not so damaging to black. Like this can be used as a ko threat. And this is actually a move that showed up pretty soon in the game too. So it's not a bad move. Even if it's not a ko threat, it's a move that can be played. So this ko threat is not so damaging to black. And this maybe is a slight loss for black, but when white tries to continue the ko, white ends up playing this move, which is a really bad ko. It's really a bad exchange.
Right.
And black's going to lose the ko. And locally, this is going to be great for white, but I guess when white's playing moves like B, this is not necessarily better than the game. In fact, in this SDF file, I bet I'm saying that the game is better. I remember saying that. So white just jumped. Instead of attacking immediately, white just jumped. So white's still sort of using this move as a potential threat, but not immediately trying to cash in on that threat by extending it.
So not vulgar after all.
Yeah. So I guess so. So black also doesn't really want to put a stone in at A, for instance. Or like if black plays an Atari on the first line, there's always going to be this code that white can start, and that's going to be annoying. So it's really a bit of troublesome for black to find a good move in the corner. So black just leaves the corner. That's a code that can happen anytime, but it's not really worthwhile for black to be adding a stone. So black, instead of answering in the corner, black moves out. And so with this, black is sort of out in the center. And it's probably not good for white to try to continue here. So white continues on the upper side. So what's happening here? White has sort of gotten a base on the right side. So that group is not in immediate danger. White still has some potential in the corner. So that white group on the upper side is pretty strong, I guess. It's okay for the time being. But all these groups are sort of in between life and death at this point. They're not 100% alive. And we're going to see that make the game exciting towards the end. And for the time being, black's group on the upper side is the group that black has to worry about. And obviously, white wants to try to close black in from the center while attacking this group, because white has a weak group on the left. White doesn't want to have that group isolated. So ideally, we would have black playing something like this, and white would be covering on the top, and black would need another move on the side. So this is what white is sort of aiming at. In the game, black played this strange move, which doesn't really protect the upper side. Let's see, I think I made a variation for what happens on the upper side. If white plays here, white's going to be able to get something here. It's Tesuji for black to play one Atari. And this fight to capture on the upper side, for the time being, it's an advantage to white. Like there could be a kind of a ko there. It could turn into a ko, but for the time being, black's just going to push through here. And the reason black doesn't play the ko starts with a black move at C. But the reason black doesn't start doing that kind of thing immediately is because black also has potential to play forcing moves from the center. For instance, this move or this move are threatening to capture the two white stones. And this extra potential black gets towards the center is going to mean that white's group on the left is getting weak.
Right.
And so this attack on the upper side has a bad effect on white towards the left. And also there's the fact that at any point black can play at C, and it's going to be a kind of a ko there. So although this move leaves a big hole in the upper side, for the time being, white still has to worry about the left side group. So white plays away, of course.
Of course.
So like you would expect white to be playing something like this, right?
Yes.
So that would be a nice safe move. But now black gets to get a bit more efficient by playing the peep here, and the upper side is okay now.
Right.
So this is what black is aiming at. But white just leaves it. Here we see white playing AlphaGo's favorite move in the lower right corner. And again, like some players would be wanting to try to attack that black group in the corner, in the lower right corner, by invading at the 3-3 point. But that's probably a bit premature if white wants to do that. It would be an overplay. So the human move that I would think of playing would be C. I've marked that as C. The extension on the lower side, which is an extension, and it's a pincer. So it's a pincer extension, which is supposed to be super efficient. So that's where I would play.
Yeah. No, it makes sense.
It makes sense, doesn't it?
It does, because it's 3 against 1.
That's exactly right. So yeah. So I'm sort of at a loss here to explain why AlphaGo has to play this attachment. But it doesn't seem to make the game bad for white, especially. And so we get the Joseki variation here. And so this is a point where you would sort of expect black to be playing an extension on the lower side.
Anytime now.
Anytime now, right. Somewhere around here looks a very safe move.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah.
But of course, no, it doesn't bother, right?
Humans really like to play an extension on the third line when there's a lot of opponent stones in the area, because it's supposed to be good to be playing surrounding territory on the third line because it gives you a more stable territory.
Right.
So this is definitely what humans would be thinking of playing. But I guess it's okay for black to chase this white group a little bit. And, the order of moves here is really funny. It's the same thing. It doesn't make any difference.
It's not the
Like,
word that occurred to me. Funny, but okay. I don't. I
white,
mean, it really the order is confounding to me.
well, if white had, okay, let's just do it, make a variation. Naturally, a human would think of moving out. The next move white plays here is going to be here anyway. So it's not a big deal, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, it sort of, you sort of jump when you see white do this, but white goes back to the main variation anyway. So I suppose as far as AlphaGo is concerned, there's probably some reason, but I'm not going to hypothesize about that.
Okay. All right.
And so here we go. Have you seen this move before? This attachment. I'm not sure if we've gotten to it in earlier games in this. It's been a while, actually, so I'm not really sure, but this is a favorite move. It's a move that AlphaGo really likes to play.
Oh, I think I
we might have
remember.
had
It came up in a game, but it was much far. There was a lot more going on in it, and it had a lot of implications for stuff on the inside, as I recall.
Yeah.
I don't think it was played, with so few moves.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure either. But this is a move that, in this position in the lower left corner, where white has answered with a nice shape.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, AlphaGo really likes this move, and there is some potential with it. In this case, there's some potential that sort of connects up to black's idea of attacking white in the upper left. So we're going to see that play out in the game. It's a really funny move. Like it's a move that looks like black is trying to make sabaki, trying to make shape for maybe the stone on the lower side. But there's a lot of implications that black is trying to attack white's group in the upper left. And so it's, in a way, it's an offensive move.
Well, the thing I was thinking, and this goes from what you were just talking about, I mean, for me, it's hard to find, I mean, I'm worried about that lone black stone, but it's hard to find something that's not just almost a pass, right? I mean, that just loses tempo.
Yes, you might have a point there, because AlphaGo does have a big value attached to tempo, I think.
Yeah.
And actually, I made a text comment at this point, but I didn't make any variations. I think this is a good point to make some variations for this move, because just to show you one way that it could work, like if white pulls back here, this is a very tight shape for white, and black still has this slide in the corner. So black could, for instance, play something on the outside like this, which would be putting pressure on white in the upper left. And the point is that very little in this exchange, where black has sort of pushed white around a little bit, very little damage is being done to this black stone. So it's still loose, and it still has that slide in the corner. So this is one example. Otherwise, if white extends here, it's probably another slack move. Because, for instance, when black does stuff like this, if white pulls back here, this is going to be, again, a kind of a clump of white stones. Not so efficient. We can see black is getting potential here to make just live with this move, or sometimes play a double hane, which would lead to a kind of a ko. And so it's giving black very efficient shape, a shape that black can handle any kind of attack from white with. So we're seeing that this extension and this extension, these two passive moves, are not, even locally, they're not very good options for white. So white really has to play a hane, a strong move.
Yeah.
And when white, okay, just to give that one other variation, when white plays a hane on this side, black has this hane on the fourth line. And this is kind of a typical sabaki-like shape. It's a shape where black is going to get something out of this. And in this case, black's stones are sort of pointed towards that white group in the upper left. So there's a lot of potential for black to be attacking white here.
And still hasn't damaged the black stone underneath.
Not yet. That could happen in the process. But of course, the upper left group, which is 7 stones already, it's probably bigger at this point.
Sure.
And so it makes sense for white to be playing this hane. So the question is, what is black going to do with this now? And make a guess.
Cut. I don't know.
Yeah. Locally that's okay, but of course black plays away.
Oh yeah. Why
You
didn't I
forgot
think
it
of
was
that?
AlphaGo. Yeah, and this is an important point. It's starting an attack on the white group in the lower right.
Wait. Black is way outnumbered on this side. It's played all these other places, and now has come back and is pushing white around and attacking. It's
Well, part of it is there's that white group in the upper left, which
right,
is eyeless,
right.
and white did not play the move that I suggested that would protect that group by
I wanted to play that move too.
that move at A, for instance.
Yes.
So white didn't do that. So white does have this weak group, which is going to be something like close to 30 points if black does capture it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty significant. And there's the fact that this group in the lower right corner is not 100% alive. Like if black can peep there and start to attack it.
Right.
And black is overextended on the lower side. But there's like a zillion variations that I could just confuse myself by going into. But basically, with the attachment at B, black is trying to get some confusion in the lower left corner, which will hopefully help black to handle any invasion that white does on the lower side.
Okay.
Plus the fact that black does have some forcing moves against white in the lower right corner. So white just jumps out. And this is a good defensive move. It also starts to isolate black's group in the lower right, which is also not 100% alive. Like if white plays here at some point, the mark point.
Yeah.
Now this black group is not going to die, but black's going to sort of flounder around a little bit in trying to make the two eyes. It's going to be a bit painful.
Right.
And we have to remember that the upper right corner still has that ko waiting to happen.
Oh, right. Man, there's a lot to remember. There's a lot to remember here. You have to put little sticky notes on all of these groups.
So there's some potential for white to be attacking in the general area. But that depends on having enough ko threats. Mm-hmm. And so there's a ko that white's going to have to fight while trying to attack black. It's going to make white very busy. So white has to have everything pretty well set up. White has to have a local advantage in the whole right side to make that work. So this jump here that white has just played, this move here, is starting to set up that kind of thing. Okay, that dog is getting down.
Didn't even know the dog was up.
Yeah. And so black continues to attack in the upper left. So all of this is going to come together. And again, it's sort of surprising that black starts from here. So this is not direct. A move. It's very direct. It's not a move that we could imitate very easily because it's a very special case in which this move is attacking white in the upper left. So again, the normal move here for black is to be cutting here.
Yeah.
Cutting here, like you suggested. You had the right idea. This is the move that seems to be the tesuji here, the good move. But maybe it doesn't work so well yet. So black instead pincered here. Let's see what I did with the variation, like this kind of thing. Here we're trying to be. This is a kind of variation that I might play. This looks sort of normal to me. And then here, this is how with black I would try to win the game.
Yeah,
I think there's some potential for black. Black has let that mark group off the hook, but black is putting that white group in the lower right under a little bit of pressure, and is starting to surround the lower side. So this is how I would try to win. And the point is, I'm trying to make territory here. And so it's very unlike AlphaGo.
And just to remind folks that it is a territory game, right? I mean,
yeah. The side with more territory wins, yeah. But this is not really the way AlphaGo goes about it. So this is how and there's a cut there. Let's mark the cutting point. There's a cut here, but black's idea is to sacrifice the one stone in the center and just surround the lower side. So not to go into more detail, this is how I would have tried to win the game. And I would have been, black sort of has a lead in territory already. Yeah, so I would be starting with the idea that black has a winnable game at this point.
I like this plan. I think this plan looks good for black.
So in the game, instead of doing that, black plays here. And white has to jump out. And then black cuts. So black, there is some logic in this. Black is continuing from this move here and trying to make it work as a good move. Or you could say, like, I don't think computers playing Go really have plans in the same way humans do, but it's sort of going according to plan because the mark move here is setting up this cut, so it makes sense. So white extends in the center. So this move, in a position where you might expect white to play in the corner, let's just make a variation for that. That looks fun. So let's say white plays here. This is when you're cross-cut, it's usually a good idea to extend in some direction.
That's what they say.
So black could play here and then here. And this looks like it's setting up a pretty severe attack on white in the upper right, upper left.
Oh,
it looks bad for white.
Looks bad. Looks
so
dead,
this
actually.
It looks sort of dead, doesn't it? So this is sort of what black is threatening here, and that's what white's move at A is getting rid of. So white's going to sacrifice something in the corner to save that group in the upper left. So we can see that black's strategy here is working to a certain extent also. So black can break through here, and white goes down once more. And so this is black's chance to capture the whole corner by playing here. But in this case, white's going to get the one stone in the center. And black needs another move here, and then white's going to take the left side. So black is giving up a lot here also. And actually, this looks okay for white. There's the left side is pretty big too.
It's not quite big enough for black, is it?
Yeah, and like when you kill a group like this so early in the game, you have to remember that AlphaGo's going to be making Ko's later, like that Ko in the upper right corner. And so when you've killed a corner like this, there's a lot of Ko threats for white inside that lower left corner. And so taking the profit from black's attack so early is maybe not a good idea. So instead, black pulls back. So this is saving the marked stone. It's refusing to give that marked stone to white. And because of that, let's just mark one more marked stone. It's making this stone still meaningful. There's still some meaning attached to this stone, and eventually white's going to have to kill that stone. So there's a great value in keeping the cutting stones alive and forcing white to put a stone in to capture that. Right. So white plays in a hurry and then finally takes the one stone. So here I put a lot of marks on the board. There's A, B, C, D, E. And what do you think those marks mean?
A, B, C, D. I think those are all the. It looks to me like maybe groups that have to be kept an eye on, possibly. Except for I'm not sure about. Yeah, really? Whoa!
Yeah, very good. Yeah, you're getting used to AlphaGo, aren't you? These are the groups that are potentially going to get into trouble. Let's see how many of them did get into trouble. Let's about 3 of them got into trouble.
But trouble is AlphaGo's middle name. I mean, it's just not a problem.
And so these are the games we do have to keep an eye on. And again, I should add that the left side is still big. Like this move here is still a big move for white. Black would probably slide in a knight state. But that area is still a big territorial move, but the fighting that could happen on the right half of the board is more important at this time. So actually, there's a group that I forgot to mark, because once black plays here, this move settles black's group in the lower right, and it's giving it sort of more depth towards the upper side. So this is starting to surround white's group at A. It's preparing. For instance,
the white group above.
So like if we put the peep, of course, here is going to be forcing for black. So then if we put a black stone here and a black stone here, this white group is starting to get So it's starting to surround that white group. It takes a few moves, but there's also the fact that if black connects at C now, that white group on the right side is not completely alive.
That's the one I was wondering about, because that just looks really dodgy. And
Yeah, well, it's not going to die either, but it's somewhere between alive and dead if black plays it. So it's gonna take some trouble for white to finish that off. If white then plays, white can save it locally even, but it's going to be painful, is what I mean.
Have you seen the movie The Princess Bride?
No.
Yeah, well, you have to watch it. There's a whole discussion about Dead and Almost Dead by Billy Crystal. You'll like it. I'll have to see if I can find a clip and send it to you. Yeah, but the viewers will know what I'm talking about.
And so because the fact that black C is changing the status of that white group on the right side, that is also changing the danger for black's group in the corner. Because you might remember, let's just do that variation. When white plays here to make trouble in the corner, in the process of this, black stone here, let's mark that stone now. Black stone here is connected up.
Right. So
when white does start that ko, black's going to continue to make a ko in the corner. The status of white's group on the right side comes into danger. Mm-hmm. So this move at A is really very multi-purpose because it's saving black and it's strengthening black's lower right group, starting a potential attack on white in the lower right, and more important than that, it's making C a kind of a semi-sente move. So this is threatening white on the right side and strengthening black in the upper right corner. And so that's the kind of multiple meaning for a move that you see when there's so many unsettled groups on the board. So white did not do that, and white played here. So white finally is cast in on this move on the day and started to attack black here. So they're dodging around a little bit. Let's see. I made this variation. This is really the Tesuji move. If black is interested in trying to win the semi-I, this is the move that black is going to play. And white extends, and then black connects. So this is a good order of moves, technically. And white will play here, and black can make a ko of it. For instance, like this. And after this move, like if white connects here, white's just going to lose. So this is bad. So white continues filling on the outside, and it's going to be a ko.
Wow.
So locally this happens, but of course this is kind of a one-sided ko because white's not standing to lose anything. And at this point, when black plays the tari here, white doesn't even have to continue immediately because there's no way for black to finish off the white group in one move. So white can play the ko now or can wait for a while to play it later. It's sort of like white can change it into a one-step ko, which is advantageous for black locally, but it gives white an extra tempo. And so black just connects and says, go ahead and take it. So if white plays here, white's going to capture those stones. And black's probably going to attack at B first. And as I said, this sort of connects up to potential attack against white on the right side. And black has forcing moves at C or D. So black's going to try to be using both of those moves as forcing moves and has just sacrificed those 3 stones on the upper side. So the point is, in this variation where I was showing a ko, if black ends up losing this ko, then after that, next move, black is going to have to worry about that marked group there.
Right.
Whereas in the game variation, in this variation here, black has lost the 3 stones outright, but has forcing moves at C and D, which make the black group fairly strong. And of course, there's the connection up to the upper left corner.
Sure.
Which is a tiny move, so black's not going to hurry to play there. But with moves at C or D, black will have no trouble with this black group.
Nice.
So that's the point here. So it's really counterintuitive for black to just be giving away the upper side when the Tesuji is to play here. But there is some reason to it. Like black is keeping the main group alive. So white plays away. And so this is getting rid of all that stuff that I was talking about. Just to go back here, if white plays that move and black plays something like this and then something like this. Sorry, I didn't mean to play that move, this one. We see that white is sort of getting isolated here, and next black's going to be doing stuff like this to put pressure on white on the right side. So this is kind of a strategy that black has lined out. And by playing here, white is turning that around because now the group at A and B are pretty well connected. And when these two groups get, and also, of course, with the Atari here that white can play next, the right side, it's much easier for white to make a living shape on the right side. White's one step towards being alive. So now, if we assume that white has played the Atari at the marked point, then that connection in the upper right corner is just Miai with some other move that white can play to make alive. So white's basically alive already. And has a loose connection to the group at B, which means that next there's going to be a very strong invasion on the lower side. So it's a multi-purpose move, and it is sort of squeezing the black corner a little bit, but that's not a life and death matter at this point. So black plays one Hane, and
just a quick question. So I mean, I've gotten so excited with all this, groups and trouble and so forth, but what the heck is the balance of territory at this point?
Okay, you timed that question perfectly.
Oh, good.
Because up to this point, I think black has a small lead.
Okay.
But I'm going to call this a mistake, actually.
Really?
I sort of hesitate when I'm talking about AlphaGo. This is a point where black could have played at B, and yes, black would have had an advantage in territory.
Okay.
And there's not really any clear reason for black to be playing A right now. It's usually a forcing move. White's usually going to extend against this. But in this game position, white invaded the lower side. Let's see where white played. Okay. White invaded the lower side here.
Ouch.
So that's an ouch. And I don't like A. I definitely would not be able to continue playing after A in an easy fashion after white invades here. So it's white has sort of raised his hand and saying, I'm going to invade the lower side next. White's threatening black.
Yeah.
So it's very rational for black to be playing at B at this point instead of playing at A. And when I count the territory, black has a slight lead. So I would say it's good for black to play at B. But black didn't do that. My analysis is that after white invades at A, now the game starts to look very difficult for black. I think after this, it's getting difficult for black, even with AlphaGo playing it.
It changed so quickly because it was feeling a little good for black.
But you see, there's black does still have these thin groups on the upper side, capturing that area on the upper side for white by playing something like this.
Right.
It's such a big move.
Right.
And also there's the potential in the upper right corner. So there is some stuff that black has to worry about. All the more reason for black to play at B and try to
simplify it.
Simplify, yeah.
Yeah.
So white plays an Atari and then invades the lower side. So black's going to run away. And black's going to run away again, you might think. But black now plays here. So the order of moves here.
I was just looking at that because that looks really big. I don't know about the timing, but just because you kept playing, white playing up there, you're saying it was big. I was thinking, well, what about if white play, or what if black plays there?
Well, this is huge. It's about 8 points for black, and it was about 10 points, or maybe a bit more for white. So it's about a 20-point move, and you might notice it's taking away the eyes from white's group.
Well, there's that too, yeah.
And so there's some potential trouble for white there, and so it's big in territory. But of course, locally black needs to play at A to escape with that group on the lower. And so in some crazy way, I think AlphaGo is thinking of maybe sacrificing those stones on the lower side, but it's really hard for me to grasp at this point. So white plays one Sagari.
But back on that, I mean, it's also, white can't capture them in one move either, right?
Well, I did a variation to try to show that. So white will play a cut here, and this move in itself it's a forcing move. White is sort of trying to handle the weakness here.
Right.
So white plays a cut there, and can close black in. And a semi looks like it's probably going to be good for white. Black will probably just play the extension here. White can kill that black group. So why not? Well, this there's still some, it could be a fight to capture where white would be putting some stones inside. But this seems to be the normal way to play. But the way AlphaGo played with white was sort of interesting too. And I think that's going to lead to a win for white also. So it might be a case where it's just maybe two ways that white has potential to win. This is the move that I suggest, but the game move here has its good points too, because white's going to set up an attack against black in the lower left corner. And so black escapes. So we can see that that AlphaGo was sort of seeing this move as interchangeable with this move on the side, which is a big move too.
Right.
It's sort of counterintuitive, but there is some strange sense to it. And so white connects here. White is going to get a lot of profit in this attack. So just to show you the easy way to make life for black.
Please, because I don't see it.
Well, like black has to kick here to protect the territory from underneath.
Okay.
And cover. So that's easily alive.
Okay.
So white can keep once. Black will block from the side. So white gets this forcing move too. And white's just pushing black around.
Oh, that's nice. That's really nice.
So obviously AlphaGo is not going to take the easy way, but it jumps out. And white peeps. So what white does here is sort of neat. Like white is trying to scoop out black's eyes. Black bumps against, and you would usually expect white to pull back. But then black's going to play here. White can escape. But black's alive pretty much. But like white has to cover black from above, and black lives in the corner. So this would be better than the other variation that I was showing like this, because white doesn't have quite as much space on the side. White doesn't have any territory there. And that means white doesn't have any eyes either. So this is better for black than the other variation. So white cuts now. This cutting stone is going to be killed. So it's really strange that white doesn't just pull back. But white cuts here. This is actually a sacrifice of 2 stones.
Oh,
and the point is that white gets this Atari.
Gets the Atari,
this Atari
right.
makes the difference.
Right.
And this makes a difference in black's eye space. So white actually has locally killed the black group, sort of. And when I say sort of, the meaning here is that black does have a kind of a ko, but yeah, it's not really good.
A semi-ko?
Yeah, kind of semi-ko. So at this point, black plays here. So the group in the lower left looks like it's about to die.
Yeah.
And so what's happening here, black is actually offering a trade.
No idea. Oh,
black
really?
Is offering a trade. White can kill the black group in the corner. It's dead.
Yeah.
Black can kill white's group in the lower left, in the lower right. Sorry.
Then we have to count. Then we have
the
to
black
count.
group looks so much bigger, doesn't it? But it's not true.
Really?
And so it's like this. White can kill the group with this sequence, and because of you can see why it was important for white to push through the bamboo joint. This move, because otherwise black would have this move.
Right.
Actually, black's going to play there anyway. So we have this shape. And black will save those stones on the side. We have a potential semi coming up on the lower side. And white's going to add a stone, for instance, somewhere around here. And white's going to be able to make 2 eyes. So white will capture the black group in the corner unconditionally. But it's not really as big as it looks. Firstly, because there aren't very many attached there's not any open area attached to it. So there's not a lot of dame points. It's just the stones. So it's something like 30 points. And the white group in the lower right is just, let's see, it's 7 stones. So it's just 14 points in that. But then there's a lot of area space attached to it. So it's more than 20 points. More like 25 points. There's the added fact that black is just, right now, black is playing a forcing move from the center. And after white lives on the lower side, black's going to kind of start to make an attack on white's group in the upper side. And black's going to get some territory in the center. So there's all this added value. And the point is that when black played at A, black did not just capture the white group, but black connected to groups that were potentially weak.
Right.
And so that was a very valuable move, more valuable than the territory itself. So that explains white answering this. So, white saves the smaller group, and black saves the bigger group. So it's really strange order of moves, but I guess it makes sense. And you see black does have a weak group here on the lower side. So that's this move that black just played. And white's not alive either. But now the black group is bigger. So I think white starts by attacking a little bit. Yeah. So now the black group is bigger than the white group. Even though white's added some to it, the black group is bigger. So they play this way. Black does escape very skillfully and puts white in Dame-Zemari. This cut here is a splendid move because black is putting these two stones in Dame-Zemari. So black is forcing the exchange here, and now white cannot cut black off. So black's connected there and peeps, starting to attack white's group at A. There was no lethal attack here, actually, because black has a weak shape too. So white threatens to connect underneath. And if black persists here, like if black persists in trying to attack, sorry, that was another click-all. White crawls in the corner. And in the process of this, black is going to be losing his eyes in the corner.
Yeah.
Really bad for black to be too tenacious here. Like this is going to be more bad for black. It's going to be more, actually, it might be stronger for black to attach here. But in the end, black's going to be busy on the left side and the corner. And being too tenacious in trying to kill white is going to be bad for black. So it's okay for black to leave this at this point. And so just to show the status, so black's group on the right side in the lower right corner is going to be okay provided black does not try to kill any white stones. Right. Because for the time being, black does have this cut here, or otherwise, if black curls around in the corner, black's going to have enough space to make eyes. So it's okay for the time being, unless black tries to take the offensive, in which case it's going to be dangerous for black too. This white group on the lower side, it's not 100% alive because you see that this, let's use a square to mark this move. When black plays the square point, white's going to have to do something about the group on the right. So white is not 100% alive on the lower side yet. And so that's what black is doing with this capping move here. Black is splitting the lower side white group from the upper side white group. You might remember that white group is not alive yet. So very clearly at this point in the game, black is taking the offensive, trying to attack white. But if we sort of scroll, why don't we scroll back a little bit? Maybe even further. Go back to the point where I thought that black was ahead.
Okay.
If we imagine black playing that move at B instead of A, let's have black just put a black stone on the board and look at it. That looks like a black territory on the lower side. It's going to be some black territories. It's definitely not going to be a weak group. And if white invades there, it's usually going to be bad for white because white's going to get thin all over the place. And if we look at this and then look at the game variation, let's see if I can get back to it, somewhere around here. We were this far, one move before that, yeah. So at this point, black has just played the capping move. The whole lower side has disappeared, and it's sort of turned into a little white territory there. And that's an area
five points, right?
Yeah, a few points for white, and black's corner, the corner part of that has turned into a similar amount of territory for black. So the territory on the lower side is about even. And that was an area that was sort of looking like about 20 points for black.
Yeah.
So there's a huge difference in territory. And if we look at the left side, the left side is sort of expanded into the center here. So there's some extra white territory in the left side capturing these three black stones. So white is gaining territory all over the place. And so the fact that black has the defensive is sort of natural. Black really needs to attack now to keep in the game because black's falling behind in territory.
Wow.
Just looking at the story that came through here, white's gained so much territory. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and it's
So
you can actually count the territory, like you say. You got 5 points here, another 10 points over there, and you can
yeah,
count Black's territory is gone. Yeah, it's really clear.
a lot of it is gone. Um, it's still a close game. Like if you look at White's territory, the only sizable White territory is the territory on the left side of the board.
Right.
So it's still pretty close. White plays this capping move, sort of jabbing a little bit, a little punch here, threatening Black on the lower side before protecting the lower side. So now all of White's group on the lower side, all of these groups on both groups on the lower side of the board are settled now. They're safe. And so it's just the group on the upper side which is in danger. Black jumps. And we can see this White group is getting cut off. It's completely cut off now.
Wow.
A bit worrying.
Yeah.
And the idea of that ko at the mark point is it's far in the past, because with all these White groups that are sort of isolated all over the place, White will not have enough ko threats. But it turns into a ko anyway, so I shouldn't really say that so strongly. It turns into a kind of a ko, but White's going to be using moves to make a life to make a ko. So White doesn't really want to play this one, which is going to allow Black to play one Atari here. So it does get rid of White's eye space on the upper side, at the same time as starting to kill White on the right side of the board. So like next Black can come here, and this group is not alive either. So this is really not an option for White anymore. So White starts with the slide, which is, again, it's an interesting move. White slides once, and is starting to squeeze Black there. So after this exchange, after White has played here, all of those moves, all of these points that I'm about to mark, all of these points are going to be are points that White can play with Sente.
Right.
And so White has one eye on the side and has something that is starting to form up as an eye in the center of the board, and we're going to see that happen. So Black plays an Atari. It would be really painful for White to be connecting against this Atari. So this is where the ko starts. And White's going to be trying to make an eye in the center with Sente as this ko continues. So we see this happening, and White just takes here. So White got this one stone. White, again, is taking a small profit here. Black continues with the ko. Black has to answer here. Let's see, should I do that variation? I guess I should. If Black takes the ko, pushing through and cutting here is actually a ladder. So that's no good for White. But actually, what White can do is White can play here.
Yeah.
And
nice.
This is going to force Black to maybe put another stone in somewhere around here. And it's going to be easy for White to handle the group in the center. Like White could even just do something like this, and it's going to be okay.
Wow.
Probably better to play a peep or a hane, somewhere closer to White's group. But White's going to be okay here. So Black didn't do that. This would have the added value of taking away any potential Black territory in the center area. So Black didn't do that. Black answered here. And we can see there's some potential for Black to make some territory there. So the ko continues. Both sides have a good number of ko threats, actually, because White is trying to make a life. And so now Black is threatening White on the right side. And again, throughout this, it's not as if White has a huge territorial win, because we can assume that Black is going to end, well, since it's AlphaGo, White's going to be able to live, right?
Mm-hmm.
First
of course, yeah.
And we can probably safely assume that Black's going to end with Sente in this big exchange on the upper side, whatever happens.
Right.
So Black's going to get to this point. And this is like in a game position where any in-game move apart from this mark point is you can find a lot of moves that are about 5 points maybe, but you would have a lot of trouble finding anything bigger than 5 points. Like there's a couple of 5 points moves. If we disregard the upper side fight, which is going to be over at that point, there's nothing as big as the mark point is. And this is a huge move.
Yeah.
It's so big that even after Black plays there, the moves in that area are still going to be the biggest moves, even after Black plays there. So the fact that black is probably going to end up in Sente in this co-fight and get to the mark point means that the game is actually pretty close.
Okay.
But for the time being, black has played a co-threat, threatening white on the right side, and white has a living shape. So white peeps here. We can see an eye forming up in the center of the board.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a mistake. But again, it's a case where I made a variation. It's better for black to peep here.
Yeah. I've just been trying to read that while you were talking about what happens when white plays the peep.
Yeah. Okay, just to make sure I'm making sense. In the game variation here, black eventually got 4 co-threats against this white group on the right side.
Okay.
So I'm going to show a variation where black has 4 co-threats anyway, but doesn't make any bad moves there. So there's this kind of thing happening. Black is actually playing an endgame sequence while playing the co-threats. And so again, you can see that I'll mark the 4 moves. Black did get 4 co-threats here. That's 1, 2, 3, 4.
Right.
Just playing them.
Right.
And white has a nice territory of 8 points, but this is the territory that was expected to happen. So these are the 4 co-threats that are relatively losing nothing for black. And there's going to be a 4-point difference. It's going to be the game variation compared to this variation actually loses 4 points. So it's terrible.
Wow.
But when I look at this variation, I think white still has a small lead. So it's kind of a position where AlphaGo probably just doesn't care because it's not going to change the win-loss.
It doesn't change the result. Got it. Yeah.
And in the game, white's going to give some of those points very subtly back. So I'm probably not going to go into that in much detail, but
right, that's
it doesn't really make much difference. Okay, so we're continuing the white is playing co-threats that are threatening to connect up here. And connecting up is pretty big, you see, because that would mean white would not have to add stones to the right side. And so the territory that I was calling 8 points is if white doesn't have to put a stone inside it, it's going to be 10 points.
Right, just 2-point difference.
Yeah, and so black cuts white off, and and you can see black is losing points in these co-threats. And so white had to answer that. So this is, so white eventually loses the call, and that eye in the center might look a bit, it might seem hard to recognize whether it's an eye or not. So I made a variation with black trying to kill white. The point is white, once black plays this move, white's going to have a lot of co-threats against that move. So now white's going to win the ko here, and black has to back off. And this is going to cause trouble in the corner. So we get this variation, and you can see all of black's liberties are filled, and this is trouble for black.
Whoa.
It's a ko. Like if you assume black had a zillion ko-threats, black could win the ko, but it's going to be a bad result for black, obviously.
Yeah, no kidding.
In this case, yeah. In actual play, it's going to be bad for white. Black. So black cannot go after the white group. Black plays this huge move. And you can see white is playing this sequence. This is Tetsuji to squeeze black and close off the territory. And again, as I said, when black plays here, even though this is a huge move, it's a huge move in itself. It's also huge because the next move in the area is big. So even after white plays this squeeze here, playing another move here is still the biggest move on the board.
Wow.
But white just plays this safe move. This is where I think maybe white is giving back a few points. And we continue with the end game. And you can see this is pretty big for black. This is where black gets some extra points. And we finish the game. Just finally, this was technically this was a mistake. This is a point where black should have played here. And it ends up as a...
Just to be clear, when you say mistake, you mean it's not the optimal move, but from the AG point of view, it doesn't change the result.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So it would have been a smaller loss for black, but it's not really... when I look at it now, it's not really all that important to me. So this is the finishing position. This dog Wants to get up and down all the time. So
It's like my cat that wants to go in and out. She goes out, then she wants to come in.
yeah,
We should get the cat and the dog together and let them fight it out.
yeah. So this is going to squeeze the corner a little bit. That's why black should have protected at the 2-2 point. And it's going to increase white's win by a little bit. It's just going to be some extra moves black has to put in there. So at this point, black resigned. So it's a bit sudden, but I think after white invaded the lower side, let's just mark that stone.
Yeah.
After white invaded the lower side at this point, I'm starting to feel that the game is good for white, and white seems to take it away after that.
So is that black Hane that
Yeah, I
you
didn't
pointed out
like
earlier?
that. Let's see if I can find that move. The Hane here.
Yeah.
What black should have played. I'm pretty sure black should have played here, and I think that black is winning at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, the game just really seems to get away from black after that, and you don't see something, there's not a variation where there's a follow-up for black that
After
makes
this, it's just looking very difficult for black, and black's doing all these crazy things like playing away in the middle of this running fight on the lower side, and so black is sort of hanging in there, trying to take territory, but it's not getting better for black. It's not.
But kind of, I think your point, and you've sold me on it, is that that Hane kind of just black lost tempo there, and at a key point, and just couldn't get it back.
Well, it sort of looks like a move that a human might play, that I might play when I was losing my concentration at some point.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, distracted by a beautiful woman or something. So maybe that happened to AlphaGo.
Probably so. Well, just to wrap up, I mean, this is something that we've been discussing, because we just finished the section on the self-play games, and I think it's another example of why you like these games so much. I mean, they have sort of a series of puzzles after puzzles, and they're a lot of fun. And of course, the next section that we're working on now is the zero games, which have their own set of challenges, and we'll be doing some more of those for these videos as well, right?
Yeah. Well, this game, I think I usually I end up with a kind of an answer for the self-played series, but this game it has special strangeness that made it a bit difficult for me, I think.
We like those. Good choice. And thanks so much. Thank you, Michael. And all right, everybody, before we take off, just another big thanks to all of our wonderful AGA members who, of course, make videos like this possible. Thank you. And if you'd like to support this content as well, and we really hope you do, please consider joining the American Go Association at usgo.org. See you all next week.